The senator from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for two things. The first, I wanted to make the chamber aware of the passing of legendary Missouri Senator Kit Bond. Former Senator Bond served as Missouri's governor, was, I think at the time, Missouri's youngest governor, and still is historically, and served in this chamber for 24 years, one of the longest serving senators from my state. I have the honor of standing behind, I suppose, a desk that he once had, that Harry Truman had, that Tom Eagleton had, Jack Danforth had, Roy Blunt had, and Senator Bond. And so he had a flair, a sense of humor, and an intense dedication for delivering for his home state. He will be missed. We'll be praying for him, his wife Linda, his son Sam, and all those who knew and loved Senator Bond during this difficult time. The second reason I rise, Mr. President, is to seek unanimous consent regarding the nomination of Mr. Brian Birch as being the United States ambassador to the Vatican. The last few weeks have been of a whirlwind for Catholics. I had the honor of representing my country along with 4 other senators at the Vatican for the funeral of Pope Francis. As the first Republican Catholic elected to the Senate from my state, it was certainly an honor, a somber day. And of course, the conclave then happened, and we now have Pope Leo XIV. He will be he will be installed formally this weekend, which is why I'm rising to have this ambassador approved by the Senate before this weekend, so that he could maybe attend as the ambassador. And of course, Pope Leo is the first American elected pope, which is significant and historic. He's from Chicago, and I will note that at my 5 o'clock Mass this weekend, during the homily, it was made clear that although he's from Chicago, he is not a Cubs fan. So as a Cardinal fan, that was reassuring to know that. But it is a historic time for Catholics, and I think it's important to have this relationship with the Holy See and with the Vatican is critical for our country. I think it's important to move forward with this nomination. Brian is a devoted husband and father to his wife Sarah and their 9 children. Brian and his wife are raising a family in the greater Chicago area, ironically. Our new pope was born and raised there, or was raised there, I should say. And he's also the co-founder of Catholic Vote, a national faith-based advocacy organization whose mission is to inspire every Catholic in America to live out the truths of the Catholic faith in public life. He's been very involved. A deserving candidate has been passed out of the Foreign Relations Committee, and would do a great job. And I think it's a very important statement for this chamber to make, to have this ambassador approved by this Senate before this weekend. And so with that, Mr. President, notwithstanding Rule 22, I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to the consideration of the following nomination: Executive Calendar number 100, Brian Birch, to be ambassador to the Holy See, that the Senate vote on the nomination without intervening action or debate, the motion to reconsider be considered made, laid upon the table, and the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Is there an objection?
Mr. President,
The senator from Hawaii.
reserving the right to object, and I'd like to explain what I'm doing here. I have a hold on nominees coming out of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee because it's been almost 4 months since Donald Trump and Marco Rubio illegally and unilaterally shuttered the United States Agency for International Development under the guise of a so-called review, which should be done by now. This is in violation of the Appropriations Law, the Foreign Assistance Act, and probably the Impoundment Control Act. And here's the thing. As a direct result, and it is not so common that you can say, as a direct result of something that was done by the Secretary of State and the Administrator of USAID, people are dying. Children are dying. Mothers are passing HIV/AIDS to their children. Disaster survivors are being stranded with nowhere to turn. And all of this suffering is because of what the United States is doing in contravention of their own laws. And so I will not expedite confirmation of State Department nominees until and unless this administration starts complying with the law and being accountable to Congress. And I want to make 2 other points here. I will stipulate that it would be a very nice time to send our ambassador to the Holy See. It would be an auspicious time to do so. But let's understand how hard it would be to do this in the normal course of business. You file cloture. It's a cloture petition. The majority leader is in charge of it. You put it at the desk. You wait a day. You take a procedural vote. 2 hours later, you take the final passage. You have your ambassador. Why do I know this? Because we're doing this on 9 other nominees this week. And so it was the choice of the Senate majority to prioritize the chief of protocol, the legal advisor for the Department of State, the Secretary of the Air Force, the Deputy Secretary of Energy, the Deputy Secretary of Interior, the Deputy Secretary for State for Management and Resources, the Undersecretary for Defense for Research and Engineering, the Deputy Director for Management, Office of Management and Budget, and the Assistant Administrator for the Environmental Protection Agency. If this is a very important and time-sensitive confirmation, all we need to do is have the majority leader file a cloture petition, we wait 1 day, and then we vote. And so it is perfectly available to us, if that is an urgent matter, to just do this in the normal course of business. And as I was talking to the senator from Missouri, with whom I have a pretty solid working relationship, I was explaining that, when I was in the majority and we were trying to get confirmations through, I spent a fair amount of time talking to people who had holds. And I would always go to their offices, sometimes catch them on the floor, sometimes go to the cloakroom and say, hey, what would it take to release this hold? To this moment, not a single member has walked up to me and said, what would it take to release this hold? Not the majority leader, not the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, not the senator from Missouri, not anybody. And so the normal way that the minority flexes its authority is to slow things down, even if it's slightly. And this is all this is, like a day plus 2 hours. And so if this is important, we can get it done this week. And if it's important for me to release those holds, then somebody should come and talk to me. I remain ready and willing to talk to Leader Thune or any Republican colleague as we continue consideration of these nominees going forward, and therefore I object.
Mr. President.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President.
The senator from Missouri.
Mr. President, I'd like to address that. If this weren't a blanket hold, if these weren't indiscriminate, maybe that would be productive. But these are indiscriminate holds. And I would offer to this body that not only is the Senate broken through this process and this ruse, the Democrats are broken. The Senate, by the way, you don't need to filibuster everything. You don't need 60 votes for everything. For goodness sake, Clarence Thomas was confirmed to be a United States Supreme Court justice with 52 votes. That is a different era. But I would also point to another era. We have not seen an effort like this by the minority party to be obstructionist in 50 years. Not since the Ford administration has it taken this kind of effort for every single nominee. That's brokenness, underlined by the brokenness of their party. And I'll use a bit of a baseball analogy here. They are swinging at every pitch, every single pitch, and they look ridiculous. This week it's this. Next week somebody will be down in El Salvador in an MS-13 prison, dining with, or a prison down there, dining with an MS-13 gang member who beats his wife. This is who they are. And they're also the people now standing up, objecting to the confirmation of the ambassador to the Vatican. Yes, you heard that right. The ambassador to the Vatican who could be there for the installation of the Pope. So I don't want to hear anything about how anybody's being reasonable. This is totally unreasonable. And by the way, my friend from Hawaii is defending USAID. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of the reforms real quickly. A bit of a breakdown. Heaven forbid we stopped $20 million on a Sesame Street show in Baghdad promoting LGBTQ ideals. $11 million to instruct Vietnam to stop trash burning. $56 million to boost Egyptian and Tunisian tourism. $100 million to build schools in Jordan. $11 million to instruct Vietnam to stop burning trash, I already mentioned that. DEI programs in Burma, and money for Guatemalan sex changes. Maybe, just maybe, this isn't the hill to die on. But maybe, just maybe, defending people who were deported, who are MS-13 gang members who are terrorizing our communities, that's not the hill to die on. But next week it'll be something else. But the truth is, this is really about Trump derangement syndrome. The truth is, this is about the Democrats not coming to grips about, getting smoked in November because they don't have a message. So what are they grasping at? All these ridiculous things so somebody can say they're the chief resistor. I just never thought I'd see a day that the resistance would mean holding up the ambassador to the Holy See to be there for the installation of the Pope. But here's where we are. Total brokenness from the other side. I yield the floor, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
The senator from Hawaii.
just a little bit taken aback by the personal tone here. I do enjoy working with the senator on the Commerce Committee, so I'm not going to respond in kind except to say something very simple, which is, it is Tuesday. If we file a cloture petition, which is not my authority, tonight, there will be one intervening day, and then we vote on Thursday. So if this is important to the majority leader, all he has to do is file a cloture petition.
The senator from Missouri.
I would just like to respond by saying, it's not personal. The senator from Hawaii, who's my friend, is, by defending USAID, is defending these positions. That's all the only remark I made. But also, acting like, and we did have a conversation on the floor about what it would take, acting like there'd be some accommodation that would allow this to move forward in what would normally be a normal process here. But where we're at is the Democrats are objecting to everything. That has not happened in 50 years. That is not normal. So the accommodation for this instance, I think, is reasonable. Evidently, he doesn't. It's not personal. Here we are. But the idea that the Democrat Party is grasping at straws every single day to make headlines and make themselves look ridiculous isn't personal necessarily, but it is the truth. I yield.